Hello, people. It's me again. I'm just here to present another government piece of information to you. An introduction to Parliament. This is the UK Parliament YouTube channel. So they've done another little bit of pleasant marketing. This is quite an interesting one actually because it's got some funky background music that just really makes you feel good and happy and involved. So you have to bear and tolerate that. Or the better word to use would be you would have to suffer that, which is to allow, because it's beyond, well, it's within your means to turn off. But of course you want information, so you're going to listen for it. So you have to suffer the background music of this video. And hopefully, as we go through it, I'll just pick apart some of the things that may be not exactly clear, or maybe not highlighted as well as they should be. But without further ado, let's go!
Healthcare, education, the environment, international aid, crime.
Okay, so the first thing they're presenting is the areas that government is particularly concerned with. Now remember, they've sat down and they've created this video, and now they have to think, right, we actually have to tell people what do we actually do? Oh man, they're probably like, well, what do we do? Well, we collect a shit ton of taxes. Yes, we do, but what do we actually do? So these are the best 5 things that they've put forward and presented to you. Okay, so let's look at what they're actually presenting. So the first thing is healthcare. Now, we can all agree that in the UK or England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, whatever you want to say, we have I'm a big fan of the NHS because the NHS actually allows people to get harmed without silly costs being done. So, for example, if we have an accident in a road traffic accident, and someone breaks their leg, they're taken to hospital, they're treated at point of service, and it's all free. Okay, so that means that the person who had their leg broken doesn't have to go suing the person who broke their leg for the cost of the medical treatment because it's free at service. So, it's quite nice. Obviously it's not nice breaking your leg, but it's the fact that the state is more than happy to step in and say, look, we're going to look after our people, we're going to look after our citizens, and we're going to make sure that anyone who needs medical treatment in an emergency, it's just don't worry. It's not going to be a burden or a worry to you about how you're going to pay these bills, all right? Which is fantastic. So I'm all for the NHS, pro NHS. I love the concept of it, and it also gets rid of this suing culture that you might have in other countries. The next thing, the environment. Now, environment is literally like a circumference. Enviro is a circumference, and that means pertaining to what's around you. Now, environment as a word doesn't mean nature. Okay, it just means the environment that we wish to see around us is the environment that we're going to aspire to creating. So when people talk about the environment, don't immediately think that they want to preserve everything as natural and as native as it should be. It could be that they want the environment, the surroundings, to be a concrete jungle. So it's a very tricky word, environment, but yeah, so they're basically saying environment is one of the core things that they want to look at. Fine, whatever. Crime. Absolutely 100% agree with that. That's the only one there I really 100% behind. Because there are arguments around healthcare that, it's obviously a burden to the taxpayer. But crime or law and order, absolutely 100%. International aid. So they're kind of scratching the barrel now. And they go, we need government for international aid. No, that's not a core part of any government, is to look outside of its own borders. The borders of our country are there for a reason, and anything within the border is the government's concern in terms of law and order, protection of property. International aid, it's a lovely aspirational thing, but until everyone is fed, clothed, and if you like, employed or has a career, I don't see why there should be money going outside unless there's a disaster, which is fine. Earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, all that stuff, hurricanes, perfect. They need help, send it. Education, yeah, education's fine because obviously they're like a standard level of education, so everyone can read their legal nonsense and contract with their legal nonsense. Beautiful. So there we go. But they're the 5 best things that they've come up with, and 2 of them I really agree with. Education, there's all kinds of education. You don't have to go send your kids to state school or the government provided education. You can organise it yourself. If you have a neighbourhood, you can do things around education, which is quite rightly too. But everyone has to have an education. Everyone has to be taught in some ways. There can't be some sort of feral, unguided threat to society by not being taught in a proper way. Let's crack on.
Issues affecting all our lives are shaped and driven by Parliament. But how did it all begin? What does Parliament do all day, and how do you fit in?
How do you fit in to the Parliament? Okay, in lowercase u. So how do you fit in? How do you, as one of the people, fit into Parliament? Interesting question, almost profound.
Parliament has evolved.
This is good. So they're basically saying Parliament's evolved. Now, the reason I want to do this, I think if anyone's got the time, study how Parliament has changed. This is their video, yeah? So Parliament started off as this, like a hall. I think, was it Westminster Hall? I think it was a palace, just literally a hall. But barely enough people, from like maybe 100 or 200 people in it at most.
Throughout its long history.
And obviously they're showing you here, they're bolting it on, it's growing, it's evolving.
To become what
I will put some towers on it now.
Changing over time to...
And now it looks like this. Interesting. So obviously things have been changing over the time. People have been coming, probably not going so much. But obviously it's there. That's what it is now. So it's gone from a little hall of, few privileged people to now obviously becoming a great, grand, big Westminster palace, or whatever you call it, to become accommodating for somewhere in the region of 1,300 people.
Meet the needs of the people.
Saying Parliament's been created to meet the needs of the people, yeah? So remember what I've always said in many of my videos, wants not, let none be found wanting, want not, waste not. And want is like, oh, I want something, mummy. Mummy, I want a lollipop, yeah? Mummy can say, no, you're not having a lollipop. But what you might say, Mummy, I need water. Mummy, I need water now. And you can say, oh, he needs water. He must be thirsty. He must be uncomfortable. Yeah? So need is a really big want. So when you're meeting the needs of the people, you have a needy population. They want, they need. They're almost being like a plaintive, if you like. They're being like nagging you. Oh, we need food. We need water. We need this. We need that. We need it. Because in a way it proves that you're not self-sufficient.
Two key historical events began this process.
Two key historical events. Now, this is going to take some time.
In 1215, King John put his seal on Magna.
Yes, King John put his seal on Magna Carta, but my God, he wasn't happy about it. And if you want to read about Magna Carta, it's not an important document for the peasantry people, yeah? And if you don't think you're a peasant, you probably are. So King John was basically, pressured, in the most serious sense of the word, to basically agree to a contract with the barons, because the barons were fearful. They were the lowest level of nobility, and they were the most vulnerable to arbitrary divine right of kings seizures of their property, titles, lands, goods, monies, anything. The king was like, I really need to do this war in France. Where can I get money from? We'll come to that in a later. But to say John put his seal on it, yeah, he did, but you could argue always it was under duress. Therefore, it's not technically lawful or valid, or it can be disputed. More importantly, John, it was his son. Was it Henry? I think it was Henry. And Henry, basically, after his dad died, he was raised by the very people who, were against his father's oppressive rule. And obviously, when you're being raised by your father's enemies, you're sure as hell going to be raised in such a way that you think, all right, I better agree to these guys' demands. But, whatever the situation was there, Henry agreed to it, and that was in 1225, I believe. And if you want more about this, read David Starkey's book on Magna Carta. It's really good. It's not very long. About half the book is information. The other half is like referencing and stuff. But it's a very concise book about what's actually been going on, and there's lots of material to learn about Magna Carta. But basically, 1225, Henry was the actual voluntary king saying, yeah, we're going to do this, fine. If this is what it takes to have a peaceful, harmonious empire, kingdom, let's do it. So that's really, John, that's where it all started, but really it was his son that was completely committed to incorporating Magna Carta as a rule of law between barons, nobility, and monarch, with kind of controlling the king's divine right of rule.
Carta, and agreed to a list of 63 rules set out by a group of barons.
Oh look, yes, these guys who have your army, the soldiers, these guys who have a duty to provide you with the muscle of your kingdom. Oh, they suddenly all turn against you and say, right, don't steal our shit, we're going to fucking join up and beat you up if you do it. So sign this contract and we'll all get on happy as Larry. And it's not changed since, basically. That's pretty much what's been going on. The erosion of the king's or the monarch's powers. The only thing we are now, we're still a constitutional monarchy that just happens to have a House of Parliament that operates like a quasi or a pseudo democracy. Okay, but don't think that this setup hasn't changed. Okay, remember that all these people, all these barons, are the people who created Parliament for the good of the kingdom. Fine, with noble intent. Fine. It's hopefully it's stayed like that. One thing I want to notice about the animations that the government's decided to use: no one has eyes. None of these little models have any eyes, so presumably they're all blind to the truth, to what's really going on, to what's happening. Maybe.
This ensured for the first time that no one, not even the king, was above the law.
That's right. No one, not even.
It ensured for the first time that no one, not even the king,
was above the law. So think of this as a cross section of society. So we've got lower class or working class. These two people. In case you don't know, you might have the middle class, which could be like a sir here, a knight, a man with duties, and then you got the upper class or the noble class. Yeah. And the king is the highest status in our land, okay? So don't think that you're ever going to attain that. I mean, you can try, but my God. So this is, the king is basically, he doesn't care about class because he's at the top of the pile, all right? So he's not upper class, he is the class. All these classes are related to the king. Now, originally, the land and the people are one, okay? The king acts, poncing around, if you like, with the crown and all the riches and all the wealth and all the decision making of the kingdom. It's almost like a burden in a way. It's very much a burden, as even Prince Harry said recently. None of the family want the crown. They don't want the burden of it because it's such a big responsibility. I want to step away from my duties, which is fine. I mean, we're more than happy to assign it to someone else if that's the case. But the people essentially, the king acts at the people's pleasure. All right, don't forget these are the people down here. Now these are the people, but they're obviously changing their status from being like just of the land, commoners, if you like. Now, middle class people. You can see the issue John has is like, if you're a king and you need money to finance a war, okay, these people can swing swords and stuff, but look at them, they're in rags. They can't do anything. Now I need money to fund my army. Let's look at this guy. He's pretty smelly. He's got no clothes, got no possessions. He might have a plough. He might have a horse or a donkey. That's about it. And then obviously this is presumably his wife. She might run a tavern. She might have a bit of cash, but obviously it's not going to be enough to fund an army. Now let's look along at the middle class. Oh, hello. You got a nice shiny sword set. Oh, I'll have that for my army. That'd be great. Oh, you got some armour. Yeah, I'll take that for my army. Oh, you got some nice boots there as well. Wow, I'll take that as well. That's lovely stuff. Thank you. Now that's very useful. So you can see that in terms of what the king can take for what he wishes to do. Oh, this is a good target. This is an even better. Whoa, hello there. You've got a gold crown. I can melt that down and pay my troops. Oh, you got lovely clothes. Yep, I can sell those on the market. Yep, lovely stuff. Look, you might even have some rings or something. A shiny belt buckle. Lovely. So you can see the problem. By being of a certain status, you become a target for the king to actually say, right, yonk, that's mine. Thank you. Down here, you'll all fight for me. I command you to fight, but what have you got to give apart from your lives? So you can see what the barons want. All it is self-preservation. It's about keeping what is yours, yours. And that's essentially property laws have always been like that. But the divine right king has kind of the only force or the only power that has ever been able to truly ignore that kind of property law. But that's what the barons are based. That's what Magna Carta is all about. Look, king, yeah, lovely. Let's have some order here. Let's not just go around stealing essentially because you're immune from prosecution because you are the law. All the law is fountains down, drips down, if you like. Fountain of justice, it's called, drips down from the king. So this is why the king is immune from prosecution in many cases, and all these kind of immunities that you get. So anyway, the barons basically brought the king down and says, look, it's lovely being king, but certain norms or certain principles have to be that even the king can act unlawfully. We're all equal. We're all man. Yeah, this man here could be a peasant today, and he could be a king tomorrow. So I think what's the Prince and the Pauper? Is that one of those stories? That's a good one to look at how you act as a commoner and how you have to act as a king. So let's crack on.
Was above the law. 50 years later, Simon de Montfort, for the first time.
Boo! Simon de Montfort, rebellious little barons. In case you didn't know, the barons actually invited the French king over to be our monarch, just because they wanted to self-preserve themselves that much. So they invited a foreign king over to potentially be a king of England, which was the king of France. But when the king of France didn't adhere to the Magna Carta, they promptly kicked him out too. So not only are they revolting against their own king, the king that they invited in to rule under the terms of Magna Carta, who didn't necessarily agree to it, they kicked him out too. So you can kind of get a feeling of these kind of people. When someone's threatening to send you back to the peasant class, they're like, oh shit, I really don't want to go back down there. That's like devastating. I'll be like a nobody. I'll be a has-been.
Time invited representatives of the towns and shires to his 1265 Parliament. These events established the foundations for the representative democracy we have today, and from this point onwards,
representative democracy there. So they're even saying it's a representative democracy. So yeah, you get represented in Parliament, which is essentially the Baron's house, in relation to their dealings with the monarchy and the ruling of the realm, the running of the realm. Fine. Obviously, if you want to be represented in that little club, then you register to vote. And this is essentially a sign here of like how the monarch's power is being eroded by Parliament, for the better or for the worse, whatever you think about that. But essentially, we are still a constitutional monarchy. So the monarchy is the ruler. The constitution is coming in via, that's essentially what the Parliament is. Squeezing.
The power to make decisions for the nation passed
Squeezing, as you see there, squeezing away the divine right of rule by the monarch. Despotism, some people call it fascist regime, if you want to quote was it Johnny Rotten? But yeah, that's essentially it. So we all have a bigger share in what's going on by committee, so rule by committee rather than rule by monarchy. But, it's still a monarchy.
Time from the monarch to Parliament. Let's take a closer look at the UK Parliament today. Parliament is made up of three parts: the House of Commons, the House of Lords and the monarch.
Pretty straightforward there, isn't it? You've got the House of Lords, which is like the hereditary peers as it used to be before they got kicked out of their own house. And then you've got the House of Commons, which is kind of like, I don't know, it'd be like well-to-do people, really. I'm a bit confused about how the House of Commons has come about originally. I mean, I haven't done research into it, but as far as I'm concerned, it's originally it was this, and maybe you have representatives from towns, like well-to-do people like local mayors, people that you'd vote for, maybe business people, traders, people with standing in society could come in and have their say and voice their opinions. Well, obviously what's happened now is it's gone from this, as being the major power, the monarch's divine right of rule, to the House of Lords curtailing, is that the right word? Curtailing the divine right of rule of the king, or the queen. So it went from basically this power share to this power share, and what's happened in more recent years, it's gone from the Lords being able to check and balance stuff since about 1913, I think it was around that time, with Winston Churchill's reducing the powers of the hereditary lords. Now, I have an issue with this because these are some of the most educated people in our land, most privileged, if you like, because they've gone to the best schools. They've got old money. They are in a way they're guardians of the lands and the realms that they control. But since they've been moved out, and more power has been transferred now to the democratically elected house. This is in a way this is more of a free for all, and it's, in my opinion, it's great in one hand that more people can get voted in from different backgrounds. But if you look at what King Charles said about democracy is the right of equal votes among unequal minds. Okay, so anyone can come in here and essentially run the country, and a lot of people who do sit in the Houses of Parliament do not know the full history and the duties that Parliament actually means you have to the people. Okay. Now, what I mean by that, if you take Jacob Rees-Mogg, if you Google Jacob Rees-Mogg in Parliament, he's got a number of speeches that really highlight he's trying to educate people about we serve the people. The British people know best. Let's not be bureaucratic and meddle in people's affairs. Yeah, let farmers be farmers. Don't let bureaucrats tell the farmers how to be farmers. It's just complete nonsense. It's bureaucracy for bureaucracy's sake. To expand this green circle ever bigger and bigger and bigger and push all these people out, as has been happening since Tony Blair kicked out the House of Lords and hereditary peers. So now what we're getting more of these people who maybe aren't voted in now can buy in or get transferred over to the House of Lords and sit here. So really the checks and balances of the Houses of Lords, Houses of Commons, and then you've got the monarchy. These all kind of check each other. So you've got the riffraff, you've got the nobles, and then you've got the monarch. So, if the riffraff are getting out of hand, the lords would say, look, you people, lovely suggestion, but it's not in keeping with our traditions of the realm. And then obviously got the monarchies always curtailed with what they can do, and they're more of a head of state like figure. They're not going, they still technically have power, and they can claim that power back at any time. But obviously these people won't stand for that, and these people, the common people have no idea what the relationship is going on with this triad system. Won't have a clue what's going on with why these people are fighting these people again. Yeah, but anyway, my issue is this uneducated people who don't really know the truth. The most dangerous thing is that people with power trips get into like a Senate or the Roman Senate position, and now I'm sitting in a grand building and I'm here and I have power and I'm an important person, because harking back to the previous screen, if you remember, where they laid out the peasants, the knights, the barons, and the king. The barons are emphasising the fact to the king that no one is above the law. So if you come in here with the wrong attitude and you start thinking you have status, you have standing over your fellow man, that's not so.
The House of Commons is the elected chamber of Parliament. It debates big issues, proposes laws, amends existing ones, and challenges the government's work.
All these people have no eyes.
There are 650 members of Parliament, or MPs, who
I kind of laughed at that. I think if they could make it 666, I'm sure they'll try.
Each represent a constituency in the UK. They belong to either a political party or are independent, and are elected by constituents of the area they want to represent.
See, they are elected by constituents. So the moment that you register for this power to vote, to become a member of this, to become represented in Parliament by a member of Parliament, you turn from people into constituents. Constituents votes for the representative that then sits in the Houses of Parliament. So you conflated man, you conflated your status. So you said, right, I would like to have my voice heard in that house, because there are issues that I can't deal with, or I'm a needy person, I want to be heard in there. And therefore you conflate yourself from a man, whereas all people are equal under the law, to then being someone who has duties and obligations to the house that you're being elected, where you're electing someone to go and sit in.
The leader of the party that has the most MPs elected after a general election becomes the Prime Minister and heads up the government. They choose a cabinet made up of 20 senior ministers who coordinate each government department's work. Parties not in power are called the opposition.
Just look at this. So this is like, the party elects a leader and they choose 20 people in their cabinet, okay? Because you can stand as an independent. But in this system, never mind the first past the post process that we have when you vote for people, like it's not proportional representation. So it's not like the whole country voted and 20% people voted Labour, so 20% of the seats go to Labour. It's not like that. It's first past the post. So whatever the local area is, whoever gets past first wins, whether it's by one vote or all the votes. So if you're an independent and you want to care for your local area as an independent, you're going to go into Parliament with one seat. You will never have any say in that building. It's not as if you can coalition with the Labour Party. Who cares? Go away, little man. You're one person. We've got 200 seats, and you're one dude representing your constituency. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you ever stand as an independent? Pointless. And it's pointless for people to vote for you as an independent. It's ridiculous.
MPs from the opposition and government question the government on policy and proposed laws. The Speaker keeps the House in order by chairing these debates. The House of Lords is the second chamber and shares the making and shaping of laws with the House of Commons. It has around 800 members and it's made up mostly of life peers, and also includes hereditary peers and bishops. Lords are selected for their knowledge and experience and hold government to account by using their expertise to look at laws and issues in detail.
So from a point of privilege, being a noble, having this in your family bloodline going back to God knows when, believe me, that they trained everyone about how this works. They know, okay, they just know, right? when you set up in a big power base in Westminster, throughout the generations, they just know, right? This is Latin, this is Parliament, this is how this works, this is the monarch, this is how the monarch operates, this is how it all operates. So now with the House of Lords being under attack quite heavily in the last pretty much exactly 100 years, it's become a weak cog in the system. And that's something I have an issue with. Not that I like highbrow people any more than I like a peasant, But in the system of government that we've had, it's very important that the people who have common sense, a bit of conservative values, know how the history works, know how the law works and our traditions work in this country, obviously from their own society's point of view, but it's good just to keep things, let's just keep those people in that other chamber. They've got some good ideas, but that just doesn't fit in with how our country operates and how the laws work.
The monarch's role is mainly ceremonial. They meet the Prime Minister once a week to hear what's going on in Parliament and formally agree every new law.
I didn't know they met the monarch once a week. That seems pretty active. Maybe it's a letter nowadays, but it seems interesting that they meet the monarch. Because remember, this is until we get rid of the monarchy. The monarch's the head of state. The Queen is the business. You know, this is her. This is all her realm.
But that's not all. There are also people working behind the scenes who support the work of Parliament. Clerks, librarians, researchers and many more.
That's called the civil service. See East India Company. And look at I'd reference that with the first flag of America. Look at the East India Company flag and then look at the first flag flown in America. I think you'll understand a bit more about that. And then just Google civil service. Civil service was created by the East India Company and is referred to as our civil service in our UK Parliament. Interesting.
The government has been elected to run the country, and Parliament holds the government to account.
This bit confuses the hell out of me. So government, right? So that presumably is like the Labour Party or Conservative Party, okay? And Parliament is the actual Parliament. Is that what they're saying, like the buildings?
For us, the public. But
and then the public.
how? Prime Minister's questions and ministerial questions give MPs and Lords the opportunity to challenge the government's policies. It's in these debates that they can share the views of their constituents and the public and how new policies may affect them. Another important way Parliament can scrutinise or look in detail at the work of government is through select committees.
That's right, designed by committee, that works every time.
Select committees analyse and scrutinise policy.
The thing is, this is irrelevant because policy shouldn't be scrutinised by select committees. That's what the House of Lords is for. Now, obviously, this allows a broader range of information to come through. But, you know, if you can do all of this, but essentially the checks and balances for legislation is the House of Lords.
They're made up of either MPs, Lords, or a mixture of both. Together, committee members look at a particular subject and make recommendations on improvements. Witnesses with expertise in the area under scrutiny are called to give evidence, which is used to help shape the committee's inquiry. Members of the public, like you, with a view on the subject can also give evidence for consideration. At the end of an inquiry, a committee writes a report with recommendations that the government usually responds to within 60 days.
Making laws. How do you make a law?
Both houses in Parliament share responsibility.
Technically, what I would say is you're not making laws, you're making rules. But because people of your system have to adhere to the rules, they therefore become laws. So yes, they are laws if you're inside the rule book. Or inside the system, the rule book becomes a law book.
Responsibility for making and shaping laws. But where do laws come from in the first place?
That's a good question. Where do laws of nature come from in the first place? Where does the air come from? Where does the sunshine come from? Who made me? Where did I come from? That's a very good question. Profound, in fact. But we're not talking about natural laws. We're talking about laws of a construct of people, of nobles and barons and monarchs. And that's obviously a legal construct, which is Magna Carta, forming Parliament. So when we've got our man-made creation, let's create some more laws for it. Where do they come from?
A bill is a proposal for a new law.
This is crucial. Bill is everything. Something that people don't realise, and thank God we still have restaurants. Because when you ask for the bill, there's no different. When you ask for the bill, you're asking for, can I see what I've done today? What's the damages? That's what you're asking for. What's the damages? Can I have the bill? What's the damages? Oh, well, sir, you had 5 stars, you had 6 main courses and 4 puddings and a ton of wine. All right, okay. Oh, hang on a minute. You've got red wine here on the menu. I don't recall. There's no red wine. Did you drink red wine? No. Did you? No, we didn't drink red wine, but there's red wine on the menu here. Oh, sorry, sir. I think you asked for it, but we didn't bring it out. Yeah, that's right. Okay, can you take it off the bill, please? That's a bill. It's a list of what's been going on. So when people propose a bill to the government, it's a list. It's a notes of what is the grievance.
or to change an existing law, and comes from lots of places.
To change an existing law. Government, you've done this and it's costing me money. Could you please change it, or this is my bill?
Like governing and opposition parties, public inquiries, civil servants or campaign groups.
So bear all this stuff they've posted around this, but it all comes down to a bill. Bill is amazing. Just study bills. Bills, 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 bills.
So how does an idea get turned into a law? Imagine the government wanted to place greater controls over the internet. A proposal called a Green Paper is published, which presents the government's ideas for future policy. This is open for public discussion, with interested groups like internet service providers and others likely to be affected. Once findings are gathered, a white paper is published, which outlines a firmer plan for government policy. Cabinet ministers must agree whether the proposal is taken forward. Once agreed, a bill is drawn up, and the minister responsible for the policy introduces the bill to Parliament.
See that? They've had to do all that nonsense beforehand to get to a bill stage, to present the bill to Parliament. Now that's just a quality assurance process, if you like. I mean, let's have an idea, let's scrutinise the idea, let's call in some experts. Now let's present it to our members of Parliament, and then we'll scrutinise it even more. And now we will present a bill. Interesting. Or you could just present a bill as the people. So look, you're causing me an grievance, you're causing me loss, I'm concerned about this, what's going on with that? Let's just present a bill to Parliament.
For debate. MPs and members of the House of Lords comment on, debate or amend the bill through several stages. And at the end of the process, apart from very rare circumstances, it must be agreed by both houses. It's then passed to the monarch, who gives formal approval, or royal assent, and the bill becomes law, called an Act of Parliament.
So they're just giving it. Let's just go back 5 seconds and just listen to Skin, because I stopped it just as he was giving away the game.
Who gives formal approval, or royal assent, and the bill becomes law, called an Act of Parliament.
You hear that? The bill becomes law, called an Act of Parliament. Hang on a minute. You just said it was law. No, it's law, but it's an Act of Parliament. So again, coming back to the rule book side of things. Rules, like if you join a football club, or you play even on a football pitch, you have rules like no tackles from behind, don't use your hands. So these are just rules. But if you do them in a pit, if you're party to the football game and you break the rules, then essentially you're breaking a law of that pitch at that particular time. Okay, these are laws within laws. If you like. These are rules within laws, but as you're party to it, they're now proper laws. As well as the existing laws like don't shoot your opposition on the pitch, because obviously that's against the rule. It's probably not in the rule book, but it's against the law. So the ref would disqualify you, presumably just because of the outrage, and at the same time then the police will come down and arrest you because you've broken the law as opposed to just a rule law.
In the UK, we live in a democracy.
Yes, that's a good one. In the UK, we live in a democracy. That's right, if you live in the UK, as in the car, in the rock, in the mountain, inside something. If you are inside or contained within the boundaries of something like the UK, as it's commonly abbreviated to, then you're bound by the rules of the UK. Now you might leave the UK. You might just go home, live in your own house. Is your house in the UK? I'll let you think now about that one.
Which means power is in the hands of the people through our right to vote. Throughout history, lots of people in the UK have campaigned for the voting rights we have today. There are lots of different types of elections to vote in: general, local, European. Let's take a closer look at how MPs are elected to the House of Commons through the general election. General elections take place in the UK usually once every 5 years, and every seat is up for grabs. On polling day, voters make a choice from a list of candidates. The candidate with the most votes then becomes that constituency's MP.
See, you're a voter, you're a constituent, you're then you get a representative, and then you have a member of parliament. So you see how it all gets conflated.
Okay, but how would I know who to vote for? Before elections, candidates need to campaign to get people to vote for them.
Get the people, you see, you've got a campaign, we've got a canvas. They canvass you, don't they? They canvass you for votes. Hey, look at this. It's no different from someone posting like you've won the lottery through your letterbox, or hey, we double glazed salesman, or hey, we're a local takeaway house. Absolutely no difference.
Campaigning can involve handing out political leaflets, speaking in public debates, talking to people during door-to-door visits, and party political broadcasts. Parties standing for election publish a declaration of their policies during the campaign.
A declaration of their policies? That famous word down there that I'm always attacking, manifesto. If you look up manifesto and manifestus, manifestus is a very interesting word. Have a look at that. Etymologise the word manifestus.
Called a manifesto. Once elected, an MP represents all their constituents, even the...
Yep, they represent all their constituents. So all those lovely people have merged themselves together into voters. The voters have, the people have conflated into voters. The voters conflate then into being a constituent, and then the constituents conflate into a representative, this guy, and then a representative becomes a House of Parliament member.
Ones that didn't vote or voted for a different candidate. The party with the most MPs elected forms the government.
Again, these are like the grey badges that they've used for independent candidates. But there's no way, if you're an independent, how are you going to have, 350 whatever it is independents that could ever come together in any kind of harmony to work together in a parliament of this nature? It's not. This is mob rule. You have to have a big percentage of the people pushing down a smaller percentage of the people. So if you're in any way independently minded or standing, you're never, ever, ever going to have any kind of control in this system. So why would you be part of it? Yeah, why don't you self-govern? Why don't you remove yourself from it? Instead of trying to beat the system from within as an individual, take yourself out of it and just act lawfully. There's laws there. You don't need to go into this system. You just need to circumnavigate it and circumvent it in some place.
And their leader becomes Prime Minister. And if there's a hung parliament, where there's no clear winner, then a minority government or a coalition government may be created, or a fresh election held. One way to have a say in how the country is run is to use your vote.
Yeah, you didn't spot that, did you? One way to have your voice heard and how the country is run is to use your vote. It's just one way. Just one way.
You have to be 18 or over to vote in general elections.
18 is an interesting age. I've been learning about the age of, I think it's 14, 18 and 21. 21 is manhood, right? When you hit 21, it's manhood. 18, it allows infants to contract in two ways. They can be executors of a will, and the other thing is they can procreate. Don't ask me why.
But you can register from the age of 16. There are lots of other ways to get involved and have your voice heard, whatever your age. Remember, MPs represent all of their constituents. But how? You can visit an MP in their local constituency office, or you can even travel to the Houses of Parliament to lobby them in Central Lobby. Lords have knowledge and experience in specific subject areas. You can look them up by policy interest on the Parliament website. Anyone can contact any Lord or their local MP by letter, phone or email to discuss an issue that's important to them or their community. Sometimes though, there's strength in numbers, so to get your voice heard,
sometimes there's strength in numbers? What are you talking about?
You could join the youth section of a party, or the UK Youth Parliament.
Oh, this is just misdirection, this is.
Either on paper as decision making.
Schools, global issues, blah blah.
All designed to bring about change.
Support our cause. We want change, yeah, I bet you do want it. You ain't getting it. Daddy says no.
Or starting a
student council, what
today.
a pile of crap.
Making and shaping laws and democracy.
Right, hang on, let's just listen to the summary.
So, Parliament sits at the heart of UK democracy.
UK democracy, not English democracy, not Scottish democracy. We don't live in a democracy, that's the thing, we live in a constitutional monarchy. So if you're in the UK, then Parliament is your hub. It's where it all goes on. It's where it all happens in the UK.
Debating the big issues of the day, making and shaping laws, and holding the government to account. By voting, petitioning, campaigning, and more.
Petitioning. If anyone wants to know about petitioning, I mean, everyone goes, "Oh, let's petition the government." Well, you can do that. You remember the whole Bill of Rights and Declaration of Rights, 1689 or thereabouts. One of the core points that was put into the Declaration of Rights is the right to petition the monarch without fear or, of being chucked in the Tower of London. So when people say, well, you've got a right to petition the monarch directly, so why would you petition the Queen's government?
You can also get involved with the work of Parliament. What will you do?
What will you do? Well, I know what I'm doing. As to what you do, that's entirely up to you. And if you don't know the meaning of the word "you," I strongly recommend you watch my your government needs you, and you. And that's on my list of videos. By all means, please watch that one. And that's it. Oh, it's a Parliament Education Service. Yeah, we want to educate you in this particular way to have a particular view. But there we go. I hope that was unravelling some of the facets that are probably not clear if you watch it with fresh eyes.